We got this engine for our LT swap. YouTube, what it do, man? What it do? Today, YouTube, I want to show you every way that you can build your LT swap fuel system. These LT engines are becoming more and more available all across the country and all across the world. And as time progresses, they gonna become cheaper and cheaper. And if they got more horsepower, more torque, and get better fuel mileage, you ask yourself what you gonna go with. I'm gonna let you do the math. I want you to keep in mind that these LT swap fuel systems, they completely different than the LS swap fuel system. So make sure that you pay attention and make sure you watch this video all the way through, because I don't want you to miss nothing, y'all. And it's very important that you know exactly how and exactly what you need to do to have a successful LT swap. Real quick, before we get started, if you're new to this YouTube channel, I want to welcome you into the Chevys R Us family. I'm Tony. LS swaps and LT swaps is what we do. Our goal is to help you make sure you can do your LT swap or your LS swap as easy as you possibly can, as inexpensively as you possibly can. So go ahead and hit that subscribe button, and also turn on your notification bell and drop me a comment. Let me know what kind of swap you want to go with and what kind of car you're working on. Before we get into the different ways that you can build your LT swap fuel system, I first want you to know how it's different from the LS swap fuel system. Now, on the LS swap fuel system, majority of people, they run the Corvette filter style regulator. They mount that on the frame wall, run your lines, run your hose up to the front, put your electronic fuel pump in your gas tank or put it in line. Boom, you done with your LS swap fuel system. The difference is on these LT based engines, like the one you seen in the intro of this video, it has two fuel pumps. It has the electronic fuel pump, and then it also has a secondary fuel pump that's located underneath your intake. And the fuel system on these LT-based engines, they operate at a way higher PSI than the LS-style fuel system. The LT-based fuel system, that secondary fuel pump is located underneath your intake, it'll boost the pressure up in your system to about maybe 3,000 PSI or more. That's part of the direct injection. The fuel is injected directly into each cylinder. And the fact that that happens and the fact that it operates at a much higher PSI, you get more of a complete burn, and you get more horsepower, and you get better gas mileage, like 15 or 20% better gas mileage on the LT swap fuel system. And the second thing is that the in-tank fuel pump for the LS swap, it has to operate at 58 PSI in order for your LS engine to run like it's supposed to. If you don't have that 58 PSI, it's never gonna run like it's supposed to on the LS swap. On the LT swap, these new LT-based engines, they require at least 72 PSI at the fuel tank to operate properly, y'all. And once that gas gets from the fuel tank up to the secondary fuel pump, that secondary fuel pump boosts the fuel pressure up to thousands of PSI. So somewhere between up to 3,000 or even a little more than 3,000 PSI at that point. And that's your fuel system for the LT swap. I'm going to be putting some part numbers in the description. Keep in mind that These companies, this ain't no paid video advertisement or any of that, man. But I want you to have all the necessary information that you need to do your LT swap, y'all. So I'm going to put it out there anyway. It ain't even about that. You know, it's all about you and making sure you got everything you need to do your LT swap or your LS swap. Now, we're going to be talking about fuel line locations. We're going to be talking about fuel pump types and brands. We're going to be talking about all of that. We're going to be covering everything, man. All right? So y'all make sure that y'all stay locked, y'all stay tuned, y'all pay attention, and you don't skip through this video. Otherwise, you're going to miss something, and you're going to be hung out there to dry when you're trying to do your LT swap. All right, YouTube. Now that we have established and we talked about the differences between the LS-based fuel system and the LT-based fuel system, I want to talk to you about the different ways that you can implement the LT swap fuel system. All right? Keep in mind, you can build these LT swap fuel systems two different ways, and its benefits, its pros and cons to each way. So make sure that you continue to pay attention and that you continue to watch this video all the way through. You can build your LT swap fuel system with a return fuel line that returns the gas back to your tank. But we got to be careful about that. And I'm going to tell you why a little bit later on in the video if you decide to go with that option that has the return that returns gas back to your fuel tank. All right, we're going to talk about that. Remember I said that. That's the first way that you can do your fuel system. The second way is you can build a return-less LT swap fuel system. And what happens here is you don't need a pressure regulator. Reason you don't need a fuel pressure regulator is the fact that because the fuel pressure is actually controlled by the computer. With these newer LT-based engines coming from the factory, they're controlled by, I think it's called PWM, pulse width modulation. And what that is depending on the engine RPM, depending on engine draw, and depending on a number of different factors, that LT swap fuel pump is going to decrease and increase, decrease, increase. So it's going to speed up, slow down, speed up, slow down. And within doing that, the computer is able to maintain your fuel pressure and make sure that you have the desired fuel pressure to your rail before it gets to the secondary fuel pump. That's the second way, man. And you know what? I think that is absolutely great because it provides a lot of benefit if you run your LT swap returnless and let the computer control the fuel pressure and control the fuel pump. And the reason I say that is because you got to think about it, y'all. If you sitting in traffic and you idling, you ain't going to have your foot on the gas running at 6,000 RPMs. Ooh, why are you sitting at that traffic light with the gas, with your foot on the gas, burning up that gas, wear and tear on your engine, just burning unnecessary energy? And so the fuel pump kind of works the same way, y'all. With the return-less style LT swap fuel system, it'll save you on your pump life because it ain't always pumping it at the highest capacity. It ain't always working as hard as it needs to work. You're going to get better gas mileage that way. The pump is going to last longer, and you may not never have to replace that fuel pump. So that's a great benefit, y'all. But what you do need is if you decide to go with the returnless style LT swap fuel system, what you need to make sure that you get is a fuel pump that's compatible with pulse wavelength modulation. You need to make sure your fuel pump is compatible with that option. And I'm gonna put some fuel pumps in the description so that y'all will have them. And I ain't just putting it out there to put it out there, man. I actually know people that have these fuel pumps, man, and they work good for them. What you also need to be careful of is if you decide to go with the return style fuel system for your LT swap, you need to be careful of the fuel regulators that you get. A lot of the fuel regulators, they'll max out at 70 PSI, and you'll say, oh man, 70 is close to 72. I'm just gonna get the 70 PSI fuel pressure regulator. Don't do it, man. Don't ever do it, because your car may not never run right because it don't have the required fuel pressure to the fuel rail. I know you probably say 1 or 2 PSI don't matter, but let me tell you something. With these LT-based engines and the LS-based engines, 1 or 2 PSI does matter for operational efficiency, y'all. So make sure you get a fuel pressure regulator that is at least 80, that maxes out at 80 or higher PSI. If you're using the return style LT swap fuel system, you are going to be required to set your fuel pressure regulator at 72 PSI, which is the minimum amount that's required to run your LT engine so that you can get the maximum and the best performance out of it, y'all. Remember that, man. One more thing that you're going to need for both style setups is you're going to need an inline fuel filter. True enough, if you got the pump inside the tank, you got some kind of filter inside the tank. But I mean, it's always good to have an inline filter. And what you need is an AN6 inline filter. I'll drop one in the description. I'll make sure I include that for y'all. All right, so remember that. And as far as your fuel lines are concerned, a lot of people say, well, the LT swap fuel system has high fuel pressure. Well, it's okay. AN6 fuel lines are okay for your LT swap fuel system, because AN6 fuel lines will take your fuel from the tank all the way up to the fuel rail. And then once your fuel gets to the fuel rail, it'll go in the fuel rail and the pressure will get boosted up underneath the intake. I think they got some kind of fuel orifice tube or whatever that's bigger, that's stronger, and you know, it can handle 3,000 PSI or more. So that's another thing that you need to be concerned about. Now, as far as routing is concerned, man, I'm gonna share a quick tip with y'all. I know how difficult it can be removing gas lines and replacing gas lines on a car, especially with the body of the car sitting on top of the frame. But what I did is I used the gas lines that was already on the car, and I attached my AN6 gas lines to the original gas line. And how I did it is I used these. Let me show them to y'all real quick, man. I bet y'all probably didn't even know they make them. Go one right here. Let me show you what it looked like. It looked just like this right here, y'all. It's a stainless steel zip tie. You ain't got to worry about them melting or, wearing out. The plastic one's wearing out. And your gas line will be stable under there. And you can stick the zip tie up there, pull it back down, and tighten it up. And you ain't got to be worried about fumbling underneath the car, trying to mount it and put screws and bolt in gas lines and all that. No, you ain't got to do all that. I mean, that's the easy route. You can do it that way. And then also, a lot of people look for location. Where can I route my AN6 fuel lines? And yeah, use the original fuel line as a route. Route it the exact same way that the factory routed it, man. You ain't got to worry about nothing that way. All right? That's a good rule of thumb, And as far as brand, any quality brand AN6 line, and get the quality AN6 fittings as well, y'all. Don't get the cheap stuff. You get what you pay for. Because if you go with the cheap stuff, you don't want to be swapping out AN6 fittings, this leak. No, you don't want to do that either, man. Go ahead, spend the extra money and get the stainless steel stuff and the quality AN6 fittings. Remember that. These are just a couple of tips, man, that you need to make sure that your LT swap system is right, man. With Chevys R Us, our goal is to help you do your LT swap or your LS swap as easy as you possibly can, as inexpensively as you possibly can, y'all. If you like learning this kind of stuff, y'all do me a favor and hit that subscribe button before you get out of here. And turn on your notification bell. That way you see all the new videos when we post them. If this your first time on the channel, in our last video, we actually talked about all the parts that you need. If you have not checked that video out, I highly advise you, click that link in the top right corner and check that video out. Give you an overview and a general idea of what you're going to be spending in parts to do your LT swap. So y'all check that out. And just to let you know, we talk about things like this, man, every single Wednesday on Go Live Wednesday, 8 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And we also have a live car show and tell. So if you've been working hard on a project and you want to show it off, hey, we'll be more than happy to have you for Go Live Wednesdays with Chevy's R Us Family, y'all. YouTube!